This is Jim Szymanski, Director of Public Affairs for the Washington Retail Association. Today you'll be watching a newscast that will feature interviews with elected officials, a candidate for governor, members of our board of directors, and lobbyists who will report on highlights of the 2016 session of the Washington State Legislature. We start today with an interview with House Republican Hans Zeiger, a candidate for state senate who talked about key retail issues the legislature faced this year.
I think that a teen training wage is a really good thing to do for our state. I think it would allow for more teen employment. It would allow for teens to learn a work ethic and to learn job skills that will help them throughout their entire lives.
We recorded a podcast with Democrat Congressman Denny Heck from Washington State, who discussed national efforts to reform sales taxes to benefit traditional retailers in their competition with online sellers.
Yeah, I'm just going to keep coming back to it, Jim. This is a question of basic fairness for brick and mortar stores. And imagine a world in which online sales continue to grow as they have, and they're going to continue to grow. There's no question about it. But imagine a world in which we have fewer and fewer and fewer brick and mortar stores. That's going to make our community less healthy and, for that matter, less interesting.
Next up is Representative Terry Hickel, Republican from Federal Way, who is running for election this fall and shared her first impressions of the legislature after being appointed to the seat last year.
They put together the best bill, and they pulled the best components of other bills together. And I watched at the back of the floor our ranking education member with the education committee chair working together for about 2 hours. And they really crafted the best bill together. And we saw that about 90% of the time. That's what really does happen in Olympia. And that was refreshing for me.
In February, the Retail Association's Board of Directors conducted their annual visit to the legislature. The meeting allows directors to present the retail industry's issues of prime importance to leadership of the House and Senate and to take feedback from legislators. The meeting also allows these directors to stress the importance of avoiding tax increases and expensive governmental regulations that threaten the livelihoods of retailers, especially small businesses. A representative from the governor's office also participated, as they do every year at this meeting. WRI's team of lobbyists, led by Mark Johnson, Vice President of Government Affairs, and Joni Deutsch, Director of Government Affairs, testified often on scores of retail-related bills. Our lobbying team scored major wins for retailers, including preserving a sales tax exemption that promotes sales for retailers along our state's borders with Oregon and Idaho, defeating an unnecessary tax on bottled water, and coming out of the session with no new taxes to burden retailers and small businesses. Before the start of the 2016 session, we talked with State Senator Michael Baumgardner, Republican from Spokane, about the unintended consequences of raising the state minimum wage.
Well, I have a lot of concern about further increasing one of the already highest minimum wages in the country, because I think it will drive businesses out of our state. I think it will hurt small business that already face tough regulations with things like Labor and Industry, Department of Ecology, Department of Revenue, how those things are collected. And I think it will hurt demographic groups, or underrepresented minorities and teenagers.
Next up, Mark Johnson, WRI's Vice President of Government Affairs, will report on the highlights of the lobbying team's efforts to advocate on behalf of retailers during the 2016 legislative session.
Thanks, Jim. Hi, I'm Mark Johnson, Vice President of Government Affairs for the Washington Retail Association. Today I wanted to give you a brief overview of the legislative session. The 2016 session began January the 11th and ended March 29th. WRA overall had a very successful session. I wanted to highlight 3 bills we were able to stop and 1 bill we were able to pass. First, we were able to stop what I affectionately call the parking lot tax bill. This bill would have taxed retailers and other businesses on the number of parking stalls they provide or on the square footage of their parking lots. Thankfully, we were able to put this bill to rest. The second bill we were able to stop was impacting our non-resident sales tax exemption. This would have made it a remittance program where people would have had to apply for their sales tax back from the state of Washington. In effect, this would have eliminated the program altogether. This would have had a very negative impact along the borders of Oregon and Idaho and the Canadian border as well. We were glad we were able to stop this proposal. And finally, we were able to stop the sales tax being extended to bottled water. This would have hurt sales in our stores and also increased cost to consumer of this very important food item. Finally, I want to end on a positive note. We were able to pass what's called the Cyber Crime Bill, in part thanks to the prime sponsor, Chad Magendas, for bringing this issue forward. Cybercrime impacts not only retailers and their customers, but costs hundreds of millions of dollars every year in stolen identity and stolen information that both retailers and consumers maintain. I'd like to thank all of our members that helped out in the legislative process in making this a very successful legislative session. Thanks for listening.
The Washington Retail Association has endorsed Republican candidate and former Seattle Port Commissioner Bill Bryant for governor in the November 2016 election. He recently visited with WRA to talk about how he would address issues of importance to retailers around the state.
Theodore Roosevelt was always thinking 50 years out. And we got to have a governor who's at least thinking 10 years out. And that strategic planning is an asset that I will bring to the governor's office. We need to take a pressure hose to Olympia. We have decades of simply taking the previous year's budget and adding or subtracting, but working around the edges. We need to step back and say, what are our 10-year objectives? And set 10-year objectives for every department, and then reevaluate every program, every agency, and every tax incentive.
To wrap up, we interview Olympia small businessman Lowell Gordon, owner of the Creative Office. Lowell is past president of the WRA Board of Directors and has served a variety of roles on the board, including as a small business advocate. As a board member, he has met directly with Governor Jay Inslee to present issues facing the retail industry and small business, and he discussed with us the value of being a member of the Washington Retail Association.
And my main caution to the governor was, you've got to think about these communities and how is the small business going to survive. It really helps me as a board member with the Washington Retail Association to have a broader picture of what's affecting business out in the community.
Okay. That's our report on the 2016 legislative session. I'd like to thank you for watching and invite you to watch other videos and hear other podcasts under the News tab on the association website at retailassociation.org. Thanks again for watching.